Welcome, folks, to the latest installment of Sports with Joe and Ish. I'm the sports editor of the San Marcos Daily Record, Joe Vazzelli, and I'm here with our go-to man as far as the Rattlers, but it's also going to be extending a lot to Texas State now that San Marcos' season's kind of winding down football-wise. Ishmael Johnson and Ish, the thing we're going to talk about starting out is Texas State. They had a chance to kind of control their bowl destiny by beating South Alabama, but they end up falling 24-20, and just I guess a game of missed opportunities, if you will, kind of summed it up.
Yeah, you look at the box score again, just like last week. Texas State kind of dominated the box score a little bit closer, not as one-sided, but I believe they did outgain them in terms of yardage. South Alabama, they outgained South Alabama, and South Alabama had about 3 turnovers in a row. I believe Texas State only got 10 points total out of those. They essentially spotted them 28 points, if you want to be technical with it. But Texas State really couldn't stomp their foot on it because they were up 17-7 at halftime. They just couldn't put that final foot down on the Jaguars and let them come back in. And I don't know. In the first half, the play calling was working. Things were working out great. We talked about the 10 points, but still, it wasn't the play calling. I thought they did a good job of playing to the strengths, but like you said, just missed opportunities in the end. I don't know.
Like you were saying, there was really 3 turnovers in a row, all in the first quarter, or 3 takeaways. Texas State had 1 fumble recovery the entire season going into the game. They had 3 in the first quarter, and they Will Johnson misses a field goal. They have to settle for a field goal on one of the other tries. They end up getting a touchdown on the first fumble, but still, when you get set up, they had 4 takeaways in the game. All those drives started in USA territory, and when you can't, when you finish with 13 points off takeaways, that's really just not going to get it done. You've got to, get 20 or so points, and it seemed like, the Jaguars were like, here, we're going to give you the game. We're going to give you a great chance to win, and Texas State didn't want to take it, and they let them hang around, and then the Jaguars come back and really, as we were saying, put Texas State sort of in a must-win situation starting this week with Arkansas State, who ended up falling to Appalachian State 37-32. So maybe a game that we would have anticipated being a harder one to win. Possibly now Texas State might be able to come away with a victory and give themselves another chance to maybe to get back in the bowl race.
Yeah, heading into this game, you thought South Alabama was going to be the one that put them into the bowl game, because you have Arkansas State, but then you have Georgia State, which no game's a gimme win, but if there's a gimme win, that's probably going to be it. And so you're looking at possibly, if they won this game, a 7-win season, which is attractive enough to bowl to the GoDaddy.com, the Camellia, things like that. The lesser bowls, probably not the New Orleans Bowl, but the lesser Sun Belt bowls and even outside bowls is going to be more appealing. Now, since you dropped that game, you're in a must-win situation, like you said. Arkansas State, it's going to be weird because it's going to be a Thursday game. They're coming off, only a few days of rest, and then it's right back to game planning. So I don't know. It's a peculiar situation, very interesting, but it's some ways they kind of put themselves in this position.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, I kind of looked at it today, looking at all the teams that could become bowl eligible, and sort of projecting their schedules and what they have left this year. And to me, there's going to be right around 80 teams that are going to be at 6-6. There's 76 available bowl slots for teams. So in this position, unless something really changes, Texas State has to win their final 2 games, like you were saying, to get to 7-5. And unfortunately, they had a real big opportunity to kind of, put themselves in a bowl game with GoDaddy Bowl representatives at the game on Saturday night in Mobile. Possibly, maybe if they win that game, they get the offer right off the bat. You don't know. It's hard to say because they would have waited a little while before they finally announced it. But, surprisingly enough, with Arkansas State losing to Appalachian State, this game essentially becomes the same way as the last game, where it's kind of a bowl play-in game, if you will, because if you do beat the Red Wolves and both teams finish at 7-5, you'd imagine that they take the team, if Texas State were to beat Arkansas State, they would take Texas State in the head-to-head matchup.
Exactly, and you talked about the availability of bowls this season. It's always an interesting conversation. You know, are there too many bowls? Are there too many of this? Last season, it was the same situation. It was like, oh, there's so many bowls available, and only the top two Sun Belt teams made it. Out of all the most of the teams that were left out were the rest of the Sun Belt. You saw Troy, Texas State, I believe Western Kentucky was also bowl eligible. And so, like you said, I think this is going to be a play-in game because the Sun Belt isn't the most attractive conference to bowls, and so unless you're one of those top 3, maybe 4 teams, you're probably not going to get an offer.
Yeah, the interesting thing is it looks like Conference USA is one of the leagues that Texas State and the Sun Belt could be kind of fighting for bowls over. Yeah. And Conference USA might have 6 or 7 bowl eligible teams, which is kind of surprising. But you know, the way they're kind of setting up, it's looking like, just based on scheduling strength, that they would probably win out over the Sun Belt, and that the Sun Belt might only get 3 bowl teams. They have 3 bowl tie-ins. They might get 4, but I don't think they get any more than 4. And so Texas State have to win. They have to win out. And as Jesse Kelly from South Alabama said last week, this is kind of Texas State Super Bowl, if you will. You know, surprisingly so. You know, they got to kind of take that mantra this week and approach the game week in that way. But thanks again for tuning in to the latest installment of Sports with Joe and Ish. As always, you can check out the show every week on sanmarcosrecord.com, as well as check out the latest coverage on Texas State and San Marcos. So for Joe and Ish, we're signing off.